So today we're going to look at how to compute variables. So let's pull up our little syntax from one of these other days. We're looking at the narcissism and mask use data set. So we're just going to run it all. I'm going to hit Control A just to run it and see what happened. Okay, so we've got our new data set. We've recoded some things. At this point, you want to make sure that you've recoded everything that you're going to be looking at. So what are some of the next steps? I'm going to show you an important command, and it is the compute command. So you type in compute, and then you want to put the name of the variable that you're going to be creating. So let's take a look and see what one we might want to do. We've got our narcissistic personality inventory. Let's go ahead and do our hypersensitive narcissism scale, which is kind of your vulnerable narcissism. And let's actually call it vulnerable narcissism just to be, so it's real clear. So we're going to do vulnerable. And then if you want to do more than one word, you always have to do an underscore because SPSS doesn't like spaces. So compute, that's the name of the new scale. And then you go equal. And then if you want to create, if you want to add up all those items and then calculate the mean, you go mean, and then a little left parentheses. And then you're going to take your items and just go ahead and copy them, Control C, and then paste them in there, Control V, and we're going to get rid of this attention check item because we don't need that one. And then you're going to create commas. You can put commas after each of these. I don't know why they use the commas, but they do. Then a right parentheses, period, enter, execute. And what this is going to do is this is going to create this new variable called vulnerable narcissism, which is the mean of all of these items. So let's highlight this and run it. And let's see, did it work? It worked. There's no error messages. Fantastic. Okay, so you can do this for all the different scales. So what you want to do is you want to look at the scales. For the most part, you're going to be creating means because means work well. And what this actually what the mean means is that if a participant has included any of these, they've answered any of these items, it's going to calculate the mean from as many items as they've done. So let's say they answered all 10, it'll create the mean from all 10 items. If a participant only answered 3, it's going to create the mean from those 3 items. There's other ways you can specify this mean thing, but just type mean in for now. That's going to be the easiest way. But there might be some other scales that when you're looking at it, you're like, well, okay, so vulnerable narcissism, collecting the mean makes sense. But if we scroll up here, there's another set of items which might make sense to actually calculate the sum. So these questions are, so you see these are some other questions where it asks things like, do you have any in-person classes? Are you currently employed? Do you work outside the home? In the last month, have you gone to a restaurant and eaten indoors? In the last month, have you gone to a bar and been served indoors? And these are questions which the researchers decided to put in because they thought, well, this might sort of be an indicator of how exposed they might be to other people. And so we've got 0 for no and 1 for yes when we recoded. You wouldn't necessarily want to take a mean, but instead you might want to sum up. So people with higher scores would have greater risk. So what you do, in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste these. So we're going to copy those so you can see what we're going to do in our syntax. We're going to compute a new variable. Compute, this time we're going to call this maybe like exposure to others. And then we're going to go equal, and then instead of mean, we're going to do the word sum. And then our left parentheses, and then you always put a period after the parentheses, and then you see the little compute goes blue. Execute. Oh, we forgot one thing. Got to put the commas always, right? Because SPSS likes commas for whatever reason. So we're going to highlight that and then run it. And then we'll do a quick frequency analysis just so you can see what this actually looks like. So frequencies, scroll all the way down. If you right click, you can see the variable names, or if you want to choose labels, maybe you want to look at them alphabetically. I think file order is sometimes helpful. Exposure to others. And let's just do a little chart, a little histogram. So that's going to show us, them kind of all lined up. For whatever reason, SPS took a while, so I just paused and restarted it. But that's all behind the scenes. Doesn't really matter. So you can see, you kind of get an exposure to others index, where you can see, there's some people, 36 of them, who didn't do any of these sort of things. They don't work outside the home. They don't have any in-person classes. It's 10%, about 11% of the sample. You get a nice histogram. You see that most people are kind of in that middle area of exposure, with just a few people being exposed to everything. Just 1% is doing everything on there. Let's take a look at those items. That's kind of curious. So 1% are in in-person classes. They're currently employed. They work outside the home. They've eaten indoors, and they go to bars and have been served at bars. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so we've got that with your summing scale. There is one thing I think you should do, and that has to do with your attention check items. So if you saw, we found an attention check item, and we called it attention check 1. What I'd like you to do is to create an attention check variable. Okay, so you see I've created some new syntax here. And you're probably wondering what on earth all this stuff is. And what we're doing is we're going to be creating a variable called quality check, which will add up all of the correct and incorrect answers from their attention checks. So hopefully you had already renamed different variables in your data set to correspond to what attention check number is. So if you had attention check 1 and you had attention check 2, the first thing you're going to do, this is going to deal with attention check 1, and then this syntax is going to deal with attention check 2. So let's start simply. You want to compute your attention check, a new attention check variable. We'll just call it AC1. And we're going to say compute AC1 equals 0. This is just going to create a column of zeros under a label that says AC1. So, which means that everyone basically gets a 0 until we say what to do next. Then we have this new logic statement, which says if they scored on their first attention check item, if they scored a 3, which is, if you look at the data set, they're supposed to be, according to this, they're supposed to be, please select 3 for this question. You see that? So that's why we put that in there in the syntax. If they scored a 3, this means then now put a 1 there. So if they scored a 3 on this first attention check item, put a 1 in this new variable we just created. So at this point, you've now got a variable called AC1, which has a 0 for everyone who got the attention check wrong, and a 1 for everyone who got it correct, which is really helpful later. You're going to do the same thing for your second attention check item if you had more than one, and you're going to start by first creating a new variable, attention check 2, and then just saying everyone gets a 0. And then the second line says if they scored a 5 on attention check 2, or whatever number you said they had to answer, then we're going to put a 1 in this new variable. So with your second attention check, now everyone who got it wrong, they stay at a 0. Everyone who gets it right now has a 1 in that column. And then execute, of course, just makes SPSS do what you say. And then lastly, what you're going to do is you're going to create a new variable called quality check. And you're just going to add the 2 new attention check items. And when you run execute, it's going to be really nice because you're now going to have a new variable, and it's going to show you how many attention check items each participant got correct. if you run a frequency analysis, it'll show 0 if they got none of them correct, 1 if they got one of them correct, and 2 if they got both of them correct, which will be really helpful for you to see to make decisions about who to keep in your data set or not. Let's leave. That will be all we'll do for this week. So we're getting close.